everyone, it's Holly and welcome to my book review of Confess by Colleen Hoover. I'm going to try and make this not too long, but no promises. So a general synopsis of Confess is it's kind of what you would picture as a traditional new adult novel, although I think this kind of starts to stray into the contemporary romance genre. Interestingly, I just listened to an episode of the DBSA where they had this debate about new adult, and I continue to struggle with what new adult is. Like, is it just ages? Does it have to do with content? It follows Auburn, who moved to Texas recently, and she kind of has a lot going on in her life, and she's, you know, trying to pull herself back together, and she ends up meeting Owen, who is a painter. She ends up kind of walking into his his artist studio thing one day, and they meet and they kind of hit it off, but Owen has some secrets that could potentially hurt their new blossoming relationship, and kind of things go from there. Now, I feel like that's a really general synopsis, and I think that's on purpose, both the actual official synopsis and mine. There's a lot that happens in this book. I mean, at its core, it is about the relationship between these two characters and their romance, and those kinds of things. It deals with some other issues as well, but a lot of what's going on is pretty spoilery, so it's hard to get too in-depth. But I gave it 5 stars. Loved it. So first, like I usually talk about, I want to talk about the characters. So your two main characters are obviously Auburn and Owen, and I really like Auburn. I think she's great. I think she's strong. Not necessarily like physically, like obviously this is just a contemporary story. She's not like kicking ass or anything, but she's very aware of what she wants in life and like what her goals are, and she is highly dedicated to getting those things accomplished. I could definitely see how some people might end up viewing her as being a little annoying. Some of the decisions she makes do seem foolish, but they're within character, and I can kind of forgive those, and they all kind of tie back to her like she has goals and she will accomplish them. And sometimes that means she makes stupid decisions, but they completely make sense to me. Owen is amazing. He is such a good guy. Now, don't get me wrong, I have nothing wrong with a good bad boy, but I love a good guy too, and I think it's nice that you kind of get this like truly good guy hero who's just trying to help people, and it's kind of refreshing, especially in new adult. I think new adult is chock full of the bad boy, or like the misunderstood, or like he's kind of like the moody loner guy. Like there's a lot of those. And Owen isn't that. He's not even like the moody artist. Like he's funny, and he is helpful and kind and generous. The writing, it is in dual POV, which a lot of her books have been, Colleen Hoover's books have been in lately. I do like dual, if you're going to do first person, I would prefer dual POV than a single POV, especially for a romance. I've talked about this before. If it's a romance, I personally like to be in both characters' heads so I can fully buy the relationship. I had no issues at all telling the characters apart. Like when I switched from Auburn to Owen, or Owen to Auburn, no issues at all. Their voices were actually very different. I think Auburn kind of reads like a traditional heroine, but Owen, his, like the way he speaks, specifically like internally, like his internal dialogue, is almost like artsy and like lyrical, I guess. I don't, not quite, but like a little artsier, which was nice. It's not like Ugly Love, where Miles's words and his POV is more like poetic, and like the structure, it's still structured like a narrative, but the word choice is just artsier. And I think I've said this before, I feel like with every single Colleen Hoover book, which I've read almost all of them in order, I started a little out of order, but have since been reading them, you just see her growth as an author. Like, you see what she's learned from the past, and that's not necessarily like she was horrible before. She's learned, and she's not afraid to take a chance, artistically and writing style wise, and I think that's amazing, and I hope she keeps doing it. Another thing about this book is it is full of confessions. And she says at the very beginning, it says, "The confessions you read within this novel are true confessions, submitted anonymously by readers. This book is dedicated to all of you who found the courage to share them." And so Owen, actually, his art is inspired by confessions. People drop them off anonymously to him, and then when he feels like driven, he creates a piece of artwork from them, and like a painting. So there's confessions throughout the book. Obviously the characters have them, but there's also like anonymous confessions, and some of them are cute and adorable, and some are heartbreaking, and they'd be heartbreaking to even read about as fiction, but to know that people are going through the things that they confessed in here breaks my heart. But it added a layer of like authenticity to the story, knowing that, and knowing that these weren't just something like an author created in their head. There's also, like I said, he's an artist, so it's full of paintings. I've showed these a lot, but the book has like paintings in it, and so in part of it there's kind of like a collection of them, and it's not necessarily my favorite art style, but I do appreciate them. I actually really like this first one. This black and white one I think is very pretty, and then I do also like this one right here, but actually in the book this one is also like in the context of the pages, and it's in black and white, and I think it looks even more stunning in black and white. I've said this before, I'm not really an artsy person. I can't do art. I don't really get art. Like, I'm never gonna go to an art gallery and be like, yes, this is amazing, and I, you know, all that conceptual stuff just over my head. But I bought it in here, and I like that you kind of get that visual instead of just like you picturing it in your head. So, oh, and I didn't write this down, but the romance I think is beautifully done. I completely root for Auburn and Owen, and it progresses very well. I would say, just because I feel like it's new adult, you gotta mention it, there is sexual content in this book. I don't think it's over the top. I think it's probably on the line around Maybe Someday, but it doesn't have, like, I feel like Maybe Someday just has this constant burning sexual tension in it, which I love, between Sydney and Ridge, but this one is more like low-key sexual tension. It's not, I wasn't as like anxious reading it. I don't know if that makes sense. Other people feel that way, but it's like the sexy times makes you a little, I think you could read this and be sort of okay. We'll see, but I loved their romance and I loved their story. So would I recommend it? Abso-freaking-lutely. If you like Colleen Hoover, if you like new adult, if you like romance, if you like any of those things, feel free to read this book. I think you would like it. If you don't like romance, then I wouldn't read it, because romance is a huge part of the story. There's obviously other things going on, but if romance isn't your thing, then it's not for you. Oh, and I will say this, I will probably put this in my book discussion as well, because I am doing a spoiler-filled discussion video. If you've read this and want to check that out, that should be up soon. This book did make me cry. I cried at a couple scenes. I'll probably talk about that in my book discussion, but like half the time sad tears and half the time like happy touched tears. Oh, Colleen Hoover, she knows how to get me. So if you have any questions or comments that are non-spoilery, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. If you want to suggest anything, like any books for me or anyone else, you can do that as well. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!